Okay.
Okay, thank you. Here we continue the subject of manifestation, and let's explore the effect of
Hmm.
emotions on manifestation. And in one of the previous videos, you mentioned Greg Braden,
Correct.
and one of his bestsellers was, I think, the Yeshayahu effect, something like that, and where he explains and research the mechanism and effect of prayer.
Of prayer, you said?
Yes,
Okay.
praying. And he said that in order, said there are 7 steps for a prayer to be effective. And the most important part of it, and he gave some examples from the Indian tribes and so forth, uh, is the part of feeling the subject of the prayer happening with all your senses. That's seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and in what's called the sensing it with the body.
Hmm.
Okay, and the emotions. You should feel as if it is happening right now,
Hmm.
not in the future and not in the past, but right now.
Correct.
Okay, um, and we didn't in our discussion about manifestation. It was all coming from the mind and about looking at the spiritual perspective. Let's look at the emotional perspective of how we create and how it affects. And also, I believe that also when we speak about emotions, we bring in all kinds of entities as well, if I'm correct or not.
Yes. Yes. That's a big one. Okay. Well, emotions are very powerful because it engages the body and it engages the energy field within the body itself. So, for example, if you are, how can I say, you want to manifest something, uh, by having your emotions involved, for example, you want to create an experience of travel, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And by seeing yourself in that and experiencing the emotions, not the fears of it, but the exhilaration, the freedom, uh, the excitement and the explorational part of it, and you're bringing all of that in. That's from the field. You're basically creating more alignments with that. And if you engage the body, feeling the sensation, envisioning yourself in the sensation where you are seeing yourself at the beach, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and smelling the salt air and feeling, the sand under your feet, or feeling the sun being on you, the slight breeze, hearing the sounds of the water and the birds, or seagulls or whatever that's there, uh, getting and in your mind's eye also seeing the beautiful scenery and the colors and the movement and so forth. You're engaging all your sensorial parts. So what you're doing is, because you're in the field, okay, the
Mm-hmm.
field is more responsive when you take other parts of the field communicating with the field. So other parts of you, the what seems like an
Mm-hmm.
isolated you, but it isn't. But the isolated you taking more parts, because you're now emanating that or communicating from different levels, right? So by engaging in all of those components, all those parts, uh, it's almost creating a path and say, well, this is how it looks, this is how it feels, this is how it smells, this is how it all of this, and it gets better instructions, if you want to call it that. I would use another word, but I can't think of what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, you're communicating with the field that is shaping the reality, because there's more parts of you engaged in that reality creation. So this is why it's much more powerful to engage every aspect of it. But it's also how you feel. Now, if there's a tinge of something going a different direction, you want to look at what makes you feel uncomfortable. For example,
Mhm.
you want the exhilaration to jump out of an airplane with a parachute, but then there's a fear to that. So you want to look at that.
Mhm.
Even though you saw yourself flying, jumping, and you can feel the air, you can
Mhm.
feel the how the body feels because you're traveling so quickly down towards
Mhm.
the earth, and the sounds and all of that stuff, and also the feeling of the emotional freedom that's there. But if there's an
Mhm.
emotional fear, is the parachute going to open? And there's also that, then you want to work on that part of it because there's a story belief system that triggers that emotion. So you want to look at why am I so afraid of the parachute not opening? What does that mean? So you may have to now visualize yourself. The parachute doesn't open and you crash and you die or you get hurt and be in that experience. And
Mhm.
because a lot of times, let's put it this way, and I'm sure you've had this experience because many people have, including myself. What we fear in many cases seems so huge in comparison to what actually is. How many times have you had fear about doing something and then you do it at some point? You finally say, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you look at it and say, wow, there's hardly any real fear about it.
Mhm.
I remember even in a situation where somebody wanted to ask the opposite sex out for a date, but they know each other for so long, but they were so paralyzed with fear that if I get rejected, I'll crash, whatever it is. And eventually they did ask and they didn't get rejected. But even if you did get rejected, now you're going to feel what the rejection is. But a lot of times that rejection looks so much bigger in the imaginational component
Mhm.
than to do it. So you want to go into that. And then, of course, when you're going to go and do it, you now, after you clear that part, see yourself, for example, jumping out of the airplane, all the sensorial and then landing, and all that stuff. But if you're going to ask a person out, the opposite sex, see yourself asking the question, see their response. It doesn't matter what response you're going to have because you're not going to have the triggers of that, and you're going to find that it's not that that bad. So you want to look at emotions, and this is the thing too: is when we're clearing programs for ourselves, and it's a good topic about the emotion. One of the first things that I've shared, and I imagine other people have shared too, because I remember hearing it, is to allow the emotions to be expressed. So if you're going to clear a program that's fear based, definitely
Mhm.
there's going to be emotions in there. So say you're afraid of, you know, uh,
Dogs.
dogs. Okay,
Okay.
good one. So you have the fear of dogs.
Mhm.
So what you're going to do is, yeah, you can choose to say, well, I'm going to go expose myself to the dogs. But the other thing is, the best part to do, first of all, and I say best, and I say because through
Mhm.
experience I find it works, is to imagine yourself with these dogs. And not only imagine it, create the illusion in your imagination, the dogs attacking you, biting you, all types of things, to bring that emotion of fear to the pinnacle, higher as you possibly can. And then do not shift it or fight it or resist it. Let yourself experience the fear of being around these dogs or these dogs attacking you or anything like that, and keep holding it as long as you can. What you will notice that the fear, the emotions of it starts to fade because you can't hold on to it. It's very powerful and may stay powerful for a little while.
Mhm.
But then the more you try to hold it and you can throw more stuff in and see more dogs coming and seeing whatever, it starts to fade. What happens is desensitizes, uh,
Mhm.
desensitizes. So it gets weaker and
Mhm.
weaker and weaker, and to the point where it almost fades completely. So you've given yourself the chance to experience the full emotion and allow it to take the full intensity. What happens at that point, now you can go look at the program and the emotions does not become an interference the same way. So you can now say, okay, what am I so afraid of the dogs? Well, they're going to bite me, or they're going, or it may bring up a memory. Oh, when you were a child. In some cases, it doesn't even come from this lifetime. It could be from another lifetime, or can
Hmm.
be from something that was experienced through the family lineage, and now still exists as part of our reality. So in essence, you can trace it back and say, oh, okay, let's take a look at that, and then play with that. So you're much more effective in clearing when you've gotten the emotions expressed first.
Hmm.
Now,
But
go ahead.
yes, um, when 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 I thought about emotions, you took it to the fear,
Right.
and there's also the desire.
Yes. The
Okay.
emotion of desire, the excitement, all
Yes.
of that.
Yes. And the desire is also as imaginary as fear is.
Correct.
Um, it's not let's say uh, attractive to speak about sex and sexuality.
Hmm.
But also all the issue of sexuality and desire and all I would say the fears related to it. Okay? But there is a desire, and this desire, I would say, is very much physical.
Hmm.
There is physical part of it, but we say a lot of sexuality is in the head, right? But there's lots of physicality into it, right?
Correct.
And so even though, let's say, we have the desire, let's say, to have a relationship and intimacy for some people is unrelated to sexuality.
Hmm.
And the question arising is we are speaking about the subject is manifesting.
Correct.
Let's say if I want to manifest a relationship, okay? And there's the issue of desire. And let's say the person that is the best for me, I love her the most, but there's no sexual desire. Okay? So so this is the part of the manifestation.
Hmm.
I'm manifesting something that is on the soul level the most beneficial to me, which is the I would say the conflict of intimacy and sexuality. I have to deal with it.
Hmm.
On the other hand, on the personality or the entity level, okay, it's suffering,
Hmm.
right? So let's let's develop this issue of emotions, how we manifest with our emotions, manifest for the good or for the bad. Okay.
Yeah, it goes either way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the power of emotions, and also the entities that attach to those emotions, because I know that the emotions are the most powerful attraction to entities.
Correct. Correct. Yes. That's a biggie. Okay. So, with regards to what you were saying, yeah, the emotions are very powerful in the manifestation realm. The the statement you made with if you have a lot of strong fear or negative emotions playing out, you're emanating strong negative energies or lower vibrating energies out, which becomes appealing to entities of that range. So they were going to interact.
Mm-hmm.
Now, You can also see the flip side where, say, you go to a group or gathering, and there's very strong beliefs and very strong emotions in there. So you start to connect with them. Say, for example, you get into prayer or anything of that
Mhm.
nature, and there's a certain emotion of, that may come up during that part of it, that again opens us up for various entities
Mhm.
that work in that realm, in that range of frequency.
Mhm.
Then, of course, the opposite, the next level up is if you're feeling absolutely amazing and you're in joy and bliss and your emotions are of excitement and so forth, uh,
Mhm.
you're now going to also attract entities in that range. Of course, the experiences are going to differ because each realm is going to give you. So if you're in excitement, you're going to find more excitement. You're going to have more playmates that will come and play in that excitement and so forth.
Mhm.
And then there's other levels of creativity, because a lot of times our own creativity is also receiving information and creativity from entities that may be surrounding us, so it adds a little
Mhm.
bit more to the mix. So yeah, it works on all levels. So emotions are very powerful when manifesting and also attracting various entities. But not only that, emotions also allow us to dial up or tune into clusters of consciousness. Okay, so
Please explain.
yes, so what happens is, it's like, let me give you an example. uh, just to If we are a group of people get together and they have a certain belief and a certain emotions about something, like for example, let's take religion. I don't want to pick on religion, but it's not picking, it's a good example. So if you go to a particular religious order,
Mhm.
they keep a certain structure of belief but also structure of energy and so forth. So
Mhm.
if you're going to go to this group and you're going to participate in this religious gathering and
Mhm.
religious whatever they do,
Practice.
practice, thank you, that's a good word,
Yes.
religious practice, what happens is each time they're doing that, they're uploading in the collective a pocket of consciousness, awareness, emotional patterns, a certain. So it
Mhm.
becomes like you go on a website and now you're gonna open up a page, or not even you're gonna go onto a website and you're gonna load all types of consciousness around religion, for example. All the everything, the writing, the photos, the sayings, everything is going to be religious based, for
Mhm.
example, of one particular order. That's what kind of happens in the collective. We're not even talking internet. Because we are kind of an internet hookup. So we're basically putting in the collective this consciousness, this
Mhm.
pocket of consciousness. So when you practice, say if there's a prayer involved, or if there's a certain ritual that is involved, or there's a certain practice that when you go in there, you're now tapping into that collective consciousness and all the entities that play there in that
Mhm.
realm. So you now go into the church, synagogue, whatever you want to go, cathedral, whatever it is, and you go in there. As you become more aware, when I say aware, more consciously open, you see, you will notice as you walk in, because I notice it, many other people do too that are going in. You say you go to a religious building where you can feel the energy that's stored there and how it's connected to your collective, but you also see a lot of entities hanging around too,
Mhm.
especially if it's occupied by people, because if it's not, you won't feel it, you won't see as much, you'll see very low.
Mhm.
And so when you're there with the practice, that you're kind of immersed in all of that aspect of it. So that's but it's all a lot of it is emotionally driven. For example, if you're going to a certain practice that's saying there's a deity out there and um, you have to be really good, or you have to act a certain way, or you need to before you are gifted to have another life somewhere else better or anything of that nature, then you may feel yourself uh, victimized in a way, like a victim. Oh my God, I have to
Hmm.
act a certain way because there's something over me that could punish me or send me someplace bad, or then could decide to send me someplace good or something of that nature. So that energy and that emotion that comes in is a victim emotion, fear emotion, because a lot of the religious practices stimulate that, because that way you stay on track, stay within the order, and you don't go outside the box, sort of thing.
In
Without the,
control.
yeah, yeah,
In
exactly.
control.
So it's just an observation, okay?
Mhm.
I mean, this happens everywhere. It's not only just religious, but if you get into organizations, groups, even
Yes.
business,
Corporates.
corporates, yeah, corporations, and
Hmm.
anywhere you create. So if you go, say, what do they call it? Um, I know in North America they use it a lot as a consciousness. Oh, I can't even think of the word now. But anyways, the idea of free enterprise, free whatever you want to call it. Now it's not even free, but um,
Free markets. It's
yeah,
illusion.
free
The illusion of free
markets,
market.
capitalism, or anything like that.
Yes.
So if you go into any of that,
Ideology.
yes, there's a powerful consciousness in there. There's a
Hmm.
powerful emotional charge in there, and there's a lot of energies around that. So as soon as you
Hmm.
tune into that, for somebody that's very sensitive, they're going to feel that heaviness for themselves, because they walk into a corporate building or office
Hmm.
and they can feel the heaviness of that energy. Now, the reason it feels heavy, because other people will relate with it, will go in there, and yeah, it's part of the thing, and they're feeding it, and they're fed by it. And then, of course, you're going to have all the entities in that energy field.
Hmm.
But someone going in that's light spirited, free, whatever it is, and doesn't buy into the corporate thing will feel, oh my God, that feels heavy. I remember even uh, for myself, with my group of people, we were doing some retreats at conference centers.
Hmm.
And conference centers are usually used by business people and the business consciousness and the culture and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. And every time we went in there, just for us to be able to use the space, we had so much energy we had to clear out. And then you couldn't clear out the whole building in most cases, because unless you had lots of help, you would only clear out a section of the building where you were actually holding your event. Because if you're going to go in with a different, it was very difficult. And this, we had an arrangement with one place which was beautiful. I mean, it was like the
Hmm.
ultimate in having a retreat there, but the energies were very corporate, very very, and that energy was there. And whenever we walked in there, it was like full of entities. So we're
Hmm.
getting these entities to leave, and then we're clearing the space, the energy, grounding it,
Hmm.
and it was so much, and before you can prepare the room to get started.
Hmm. There's a movie called Branded.
Ah, okay.
And in that movie, one of the characters, I don't remember all the movie, but one of the characters start to see the entities of the brands,
Ah, yes,
and how they take it's with animation, okay,
yes,
and how they take over the world.
yes,
And you
yes,
get it's a very good movie.
yes, yes. It is. I'm gonna have to check that out. It's called branding, you said?
Branded.
Branded. Okay, perfect. I'll remember
Mhm.
that. So that, see that, there you go. Because brands create an entity, create a consciousness around it.
Mhm.
And that's why they use it, and they also help program people to recognize that brand, and also stimulate emotion, stimulate different things too,
Mhm.
because that is a visual link that is created to the entity and the consciousness of that brand.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is why they spend so much money and so much advertising and so forth to embed that link, and for most people to create. Now, if you look at it, Duty, there's a lot of investment in whatever they're advertising to stir up emotions,
Yes,
because it's so powerful when we
and
bring
mostly
the emotion.
fear. And the most powerful emotion is fear,
Correct.
fear based.
Correct. Fear has a huge pocket of consciousness in there. It's not our natural. It's not part of our natural operating system, but it's a programmed uh,
Mm-hmm.
default operating system.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, in our natural state, we don't experience fear. We experience, yeah, you can experience bliss, freedom, creation, whatever it is. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
fear. Fear has to be conditioned, programmed, and some of it sometimes is
Mm-hmm.
carried through lineage, sometimes carried from past lives, whatever it is, only just so that we can experience it and clear it out anyways. So yes, you're right. So a lot of the brands are for fear, or they'll create an idealistic world or experience. For example, I drink this soda pop, and you see around them, everybody's celebrating joy, and we're bringing peace. So you relate a song to it. There's all types of things that you can connect to it to stir up emotions. And so every time you see it, it's like, oh, I want a piece of joy because I'm going to take this, and you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Your body may not be in harmony with it, but at the same
Yes.
time, you're stimulating that idea that I'm
Yes.
feeling
The,
joy.
the 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 myth of youth.
Yes, that's the other.
Yes. With fashion.
Hmm.
With fashion, everything is around being youth and young age,
Correct.
fresh.
Correct.
Um, well,
Now you
this
wanted to bring up the other side about the intimacy and the connection,
yes.
but we can go
Uh,
back to that. Go where you want to go right now.
okay. The question about big emotion and the tension of um, several emotions that we create. I gave the example of being in a very intimate relationship, but not sexual.
Mhm.
Okay? And uh, and this cannot sustain a family. Actually, in my belief system, in my and I know that 1% of the population are asexual, so they don't enjoy sex.
Mhm.
Um, so so the question is about regarding this emotions. Okay, I can have on one hand, I have lots of intimacy, but I don't have attraction.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I might have attraction to someone else, and then I'm doing adultery,
Mhm.
which is not acceptable on social level or on the local intimacy construct, and in other places it might be acceptable. I don't know.
Mhm.
So, so in essence, let's talk about the tension of conflicting, let's say, social constructs.
Mhm.
This is conflicting social. I have to be attractive, attracted, and also with intimacy with someone
Mhm.
in order to be connected with it as a partner.
Right. Right. That's a big one because, in essence, the way it works, say somebody is sexually driven, wants to have intimacy, wants to experience sex, and then you have the other person that doesn't want to
Mm-hmm.
have sex. The difference is it's polarized because, in essence, in its natural state, in our natural state, you're not driven by sex and you're not repelled by sex. You are just basically in a balance, in neutrality, where you connect with someone and then you feel a very much drawn to intimacy and then sex level of intimacy
Mm-hmm.
without running for it or repelling it. Both of the two opposites are program driven. One wanting sex and being driven by it, so that your decisions and the actions you take and whatever are because you want to be attracted and wanted to have sexual connections or relations, whatever you want to call it, is all program driven. So in essence, is what do I get out of sex? It's not only pleasure, but I feel connection. I feel this, I feel that. But there's a lot of
Mhm.
different programs, and also it makes you feel young. It makes you feel that you're accepted, that you're loved, or that you're still desired, and what that feels like. So these are all program based,
Mhm.
and also at times it can be void filling situations where it's like I'm looking for intimacy, but I don't know how to really truly experience intimacy, so I'm going to use default sex. And because, oh yeah, because we're both, engaging in something that, sheds our clothing and has to, bring the two bodies together, that's constructed as intimacy. But true intimacy, even in that situation, because if you really look at it, if you're sexually driven, you'll notice there may be a physical satisfaction because of the programming and the physicality,
Mhm.
but there won't be a totally emotional satisfaction. There won't be a connection satisfaction where you feel holistic in the act and afterwards. It could feel dirty. It could feel, but those are all program based. You can feel empty after it. And I'm
Mhm.
sure many people have experienced that. You can get involved in a sexual relationship, relations, and then feel not good about it afterwards, or feel empty, or feel that I got to get out of here because now I've satisfied the urge, for example, on a program basis, but I don't feel comfortable being in that environment or whatever it is. Now, of course, you can have the other part where you can have a lot of construct to say, well, this is wrong, I shouldn't have done this, or it could be religious based,
Mhm.
could be cultural based, could be just collective based, and all of that, or
Mhm.
even stuff that we've carried from the other side of the equation. When you're looking at, well, I don't want to have sex because it's uncomfortable, or that I don't have the desire, then you need to look at, in their case, what do they have as a program or belief system that sex stimulates with them that actually allows them to push away from it. Because in its natural state, when you are achieving a connection with someone, first physically, verbally, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
connection, and you get to that next level, that just comes into the equation very naturally. But if somebody's repelling from it, there might be a lot of stories, fears, bad experiences, anything that's been passed along, or they've adopted that because they've had sex before and it felt empty. So it's like, oh, it's like this. I'm going to eat a donut, very sugarly. It's lots of sugar in it,
Mhm.
and it's got cream in it or whatever it is. And I'm going to eat it. While I'm eating it, it's like, oh, I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. And then after you finish, you may feel the aftertaste, which is not so pleasant. And
Mhm.
then there may be the sugar rush where you feel
Mhm.
really charged, and then later on you feel very low. Or your body may be reacting where your stomach may not feel well, or your energy may not feel well. And it's similar to that, where you have a sexual experience and then you attach all this stuff in because you went in for the sugar, you went in for the momentary high, and then there was all the crash. So if you have that a few times, you now start saying, this is not worth it. And I'm not going to do this anymore. And now it's afraid to get into an intimacy experience because it has old memories of what it felt like in previous experience. So there's stuff that needs to be cleared around that. Because the program comes in, it's like, okay, sex leads to this. Intimacy equals sex equals this. You're
Mhm.
putting all these equations in place, right? Where basically, when you get to that more natural state, it's more like, okay, I'm connecting with someone first in just a connection, communication, being in their energy field, how it feels, very on agenda based. Because a lot of times people go in with the agendas like, I'm going to connect with this person because ultimately I want to have sex. You're not going to go in with that. You're going to go
Mm-hmm.
in, let me get to know this person. Let me connect with this person. And you're going to find out things about them. You're going to feel them. You're going to have that connection. Now, that can lead to wanting to be closer with each other, and that can start with a kiss or whatever it is, but there's that natural part of it. And then at some point it may turn around where you want to get more physical and connect sexually and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But that is steps that we go, but it's comfortable each step of the way, and that may not happen in one visit, but it may happen along the way. And then when you have the connection, you're now not going in for satisfaction where I'm going to have an orgasm or I'm going to have this feeling or whatever it is. You're going to go in for the connection point. Because what happens is when the two bodies are coming together, it becomes one when you have it naturally connect in a pure, and when I say pure, without all the stories either way, you know, where you allow its natural connection come in, and where the two are making love, and what you're doing is basically love coming together. uh, you will notice that during that point in time, you don't feel a separation with the bodies. You feel a oneness within the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You are become them and they become you, type of thing, and that is the natural state. And I've experienced that many times. And I've experienced the opposite too, where it was empty. But in essence, you become one in that union. And then after that whole part, you feel the closeness. You're not going to turn around and want to leave. You're not going to turn around and feel bad. You're going to feel, even after the orgasmic part, the
Mm-hmm.
physical, mechanical part comes into
Mm-hmm.
play, you still feel connected, and you're going to cuddle, you're going to hug, you're going to feel that you want to stay in their energy field because you became one within that. That is your natural state, and that is very possible. And there are people that experience that very simply. But it is, first of all, to get rid of the other programs of one versus the other, because both of them kind of take you into the pattern. Now, we're
Mm-hmm.
conditioned sexually to respond that way through the media, through education, and so forth. And even
Mm-hmm.
in our upbringing, as a kid, of course, you have hormones which kick in, which are basically, again, in that regards, coming in and playing a factor in there. But even if the hormones are there, if you let it just dictate at that point in time, then all you're going to want is sexual release rather than
Mm-hmm.
sexual connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, what you're talking about, sex, is another level of connection where we talked about the merging of
Mm-hmm.
the bodies.
What about because sexuality is so intense emotionally
Mhm.
and hormonally? What are the entities related? Are they there? Everyone have related, attached entities that related to sexuality, kind of sexuality demon or angel that's related to that, or something collective?
First level is collective, but there are also, depending on the programming and what energy that emits through those programs when you're engaging with it, you can bring darker or lower vibrating entities or higher vibrating entities during the act of whatever's playing out.
Mm-hmm.
You're also tapping into the collective consciousness of it. So, getting into a level of intimacy where it's in its natural state, you're now altering, and you're not actually engaging the polarized entities. You're bringing
Mm-hmm.
in the entity and the consciousness of the natural design, the natural state
Mm-hmm.
of being. So that's where it differs in that regards. So there is lots more involvement. So if there's emotions involved, like for example, if you're going in very program charge and emotions, are they going to like me? Are they going to, are they going to be here afterwards? Or what does this mean? There's all those things behind it that
Mm-hmm.
can get engaged. for a man, maybe a little less at times, on a collective scale, will be, am I performing properly? Am I satisfying the woman, or anything of
Mhm.
that nature? Uh,
Mhm.
for a woman, it could be, yeah, am I satisfying the man, but is he going to still, still feel the same for me after this? And
Mhm.
is he just going to leave, or there's all of that aspect. And then same sex is the same thing. It's just different
Mhm.
connection. Um, it's all the same. It's all still
Mhm.
intimacy and oneness connection. But so all those programs may come up. If they are engaged, then as much as you may have the sexual component going on, it's going to be more physically based and more mind based, but it's going to have a lot of deterrence and a lot of static noise and distraction. But if you're going in with where a natural state, where you're not having
Mhm.
all these programs, you don't have any of this stuff coming up, then you're going to enjoy that whole experience, and you're not going to have distractions. You're not going to, and you're not going to bring any polarized entity into the mix of it, and you're not
Mhm.
going to tap into any polarized
Mhm.
consciousness either. And it's very
I
different.
I thought about being infatuated in love. Okay, is that an entity?
Infatuated with love?
Infatuated people who are
Right.
infatuated.
Yes. Yes. In many
Okay.
cases, that plays a role. Okay. It still serves in a way because it helps us do whatever. By the infatuation, yes, you're tapping into an energy that is, a lot of times entity based, that create. And then I'll tell you, when that pops, sometimes you just like, you're infatuated, and then something gets triggered, and the infatuation goes away, and it's like, how did that happen so quickly? So, and a lot of times, if something gets triggered, you may bring in you can, let's put it this way: some people can love hate in an
Mhm.
instant. you know
Yes.
they can be chasing somebody and wanting whatever, and then this person may just act a certain way, and all of a sudden, and now they're in the hate category or whatever it is, and it's now
Mhm.
they can't stand this person that they were, you know um, chasing around. So yeah, there's a lot of different energies and so forth that are involved in a simple thing as sexuality. The other thing too, many are programmed, the majority are programmed to be driven by sexual needs. And a lot of our advertising and so forth, the byproducts to be driven to go one way, is very
Mhm.
sexually based. So basically, it reinforces a dysfunctional sexual act. When I say dysfunctional, it's not holistic; it's
Mhm.
separated. And to you know seek it out as a way to feel good, or there's a lot of constructs, or I got to go buy these particular clothes because it'll make me feel more
Mhm.
sexy or sexual, and then I will be adored, or I will be whatever. And the same thing with certain supplements and stuff like that. Take this supplement and you'll lose weight and you'll be more attractive, or whatever it is, and then you see always these skinny people, whatever. It kind of creates that, because if you look a certain way, you wear a certain thing, you have more fun, you're more sexually desired, you're much more,
Mhm.
you'll get your ideal mate, or whatever it may be. There's a lot of different things that are per- perpetuated with the idea.
Thank you. Um, Sexuality is very much connected with polarity.
Oh, yes.
And one of the major beliefs in polarity and in manifestation, that as you manifest in this game of virtual reality, then you must manifest both polarities. If you, let's say, manifest uh, abundance, you also manifest scarcity somewhere else.
Mhm.
If you manifest hate in here, you must be manifesting some love somewhere else, and so forth. And so there must. This is the belief in polarity and balance.
Mhm.
What is your aspect about this belief?
Well, yes, as long as you're playing in polarities, you're going to play, you're going to play the, you're going to create the, or manifest the opposite and experience the opposite because you're still in polarity to create balance. In a balanced state, you're not creating either. You're creating, so for example, you're not going to try to create abundance while creating lack somewhere else or in another aspect of your life. So, in essence, you're not even going to try to create abundance. You're going to just be in a creative mode, and whatever is necessary, beneficial will be there because a lot of times when we're creating abundance is to fill a void. We're creating an
Mhm,
abundance because if I have abundance, then I can feel good. I can feel free. I can feel
mhm.
this or that or powerful, or I can contradict my belief that I'm not worthy or anything like that. So when you're
Mhm.
going in with that construct, then of course you're going to create polarities. You're going to play in polarities because you're trying to manifest something in polarity. But if you're just creating and you say, for example, you want to experience a certain experience, you bring into the experience, you start living that experience within it, and whatever abundance is required for that experience, for example, will come into play, or whatever playmate needs to come into play will come into play. You know, whatever needs to come in will be part of it because now you're manifesting and you're co-creating and co-manifesting with other playmates at this point in time, but you're going in just on an experiential realm. Okay, this is what I'm choosing to experience. This is I bring into the mix rather than going opposite. So, but a lot of people see that there's the two opposites, and that's true. As long as you're playing with polarity, then you're going to have both parts.
Is it possible to manifest, create without polarity? Let's say relationship or
Mhm.
or sex-driven relationship. Let's say it's also possible without being in polarity.
Well, the way to create without polarity is not seeing the absence of it. So, okay, I want to have an intimate experience with someone, and so you see it as okay, this is what I'd like to experience, without seeing the lack that I don't have it right now, or that in one way or another, if I don't get it, then I'm just going to stay in lack, or like an absence of having that intimate connection. So as long as you're not coming in to fill the opposite, then yeah, you can just go into the experience of wanting to connect with someone, and you're not coming in from a want because a want is always missing. Okay, that's
Hmm.
a polarity too. I
Oh,
want
that's
this.
the issue. That's a biggie. That's a very
Yeah,
big.
it is, and then it's driven that way so that you're always wanting something.
Hmm.
The question is, why do you want it? What are you looking at right now? It's
Let's say, let's say physical satisfaction,
mhm,
physical release.
okay. So in a sense of physical release, I want physical release. Okay. Then you're looking at what is my story around the physical release. Because in essence, is it really physical release that I'm looking for? Or am I feeling that I'd like to have a connection of some sort that requires me to connect and not only just having a physical
Hmm.
release? So if you're going in, I'm looking just for a physical release, you're going to be able to connect with connections that are not going to be intimate to the level that you desire or feel that you want to have or be part of the experience. You're only going to go in with the release, and that will feel empty and everything else after the release, sort of thing. And that's I'm not judging the experience
Hmm.
because that's still a good learning experience to some degree, and as long as we're wanting to play there.
Hmm.
But in essence, if that's what you are feeling, that I just want to have physical release, then yeah, you can create within the physical
Hmm.
release. But you're not going to go in and say, well, I haven't had a physical release in a long time, and I need to have something of that nature because that's kind of the
Hmm.
polarized part of it, and you're going in from one side to the other. You're trying to fill a void,
Hmm.
right?
But um, if we're going to the other extreme of of looking at polarity, the Buddhism teaching say that one of the spiritual goals was to release any desire.
Mm-hmm.
And if you release all your desires, then you're not creating anything and you're idle. You're not participating in a creation, in a game.
Mm.
Right?
And when you're saying
so
creating, what are you creating? What do you mean by creating? Creating what?
creating your reality.
Okay.
You're sitting idle, you're meditating,
Mm-hmm.
you are satisfying your bodily functions, and you're meditating. You have no desires. Okay? You
Right.
don't engage in life.
Right.
So, and my view of it is this is another kind of elaborate control system. The Buddhism is another control system.
Mm-hmm.
It's a religion. Okay?
Yep.
That trying to control people by trying to control their desires.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as let's say if you as other religions do as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So if we look at it from this point of view, it's another extreme.
Correct.
One extreme is I was looking, okay, I'm gonna play in polarities. I'm gonna go for the experience lack, and I'm going to experience abundance. I'm gonna be experience desired, and I'm gonna experience rejected. It's a gamut, a spectrum, a full spectrum. Okay.
Yep.
Well, on the other hand, I'm not gonna. I wanted to, as a Buddhist, I want to extinguish all the desires. And what would you teach as the way to live your life?
That's up to each individual, because even Buddhism, for example, yes, that is a teaching. It is a another religion, of course, but it has certain you call rules and how you manage yourself and what you do, right? And in that regards, I mean, that plays a role too. It's like somebody that is very materialistic versus someone that's non-materialistic, and one that has lots of desires versus someone that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have any desires. It's still a polarity. It's still a part of an experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
it still
indeed.
feeds to the collective. Now it's up to the individual. What I say is, with individuals, you need to go with. It doesn't matter what rules are perpetuated by anyone, by any groups, by any consciousness. You follow what resonates with you at each step of the way. And if somebody's saying to you, you need to extinguish all desires, you got to extinguish all physical, sensorial aspects of it, whatever it is. If that's part of your experience that you feel from this level to want to participate. However, be conscious of when you have finished with that experience. It's like this. It's not like I'm going to become a Buddhist, for example, not picking on anything, or any religious facet or group,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm committing my life to it. You may want to commit your life to it right now. You may do it for a week, a month, a year, 10 years. This is an example. At some
Mm-hmm.
point, if you're always checking in, does this still resonate for me, or do I want to engage in a different way where I choose to experience other aspects of it? Then you shift that. You don't hold yourself, okay, I'm a Buddhist and I have to follow these rules till I die, type of thing.
Okay. That answers your answer, which I really like and connect to, gets us to the next subject, which is authority.
Okay. Did you
Let's
want to?
stop this conversation and continue in the next one.
Okay.